And we'll move right along to House Bill 5473, again by myself. And this act would allow in workers' compensation action for employers to shift the legal burden to employees to prove they were not intoxicated at the time of injury or death after a showing by the employer that the employee had a positive test for intoxicating substance at or immediately following the injury or death. This act would also allow for employers or insurers to recover overpayments made for indemnity benefits by set-off payments for loss of use or disfigurement. Finally, it would also require that employers bear sole responsibility for treble damages if the injured employee is a minor employed in violation of any law. This bill is about fairness in our workers' compensation law. These changes will further level the playing field for employers, and workers' compensation insurance companies so that only fairness and justice are present in workers' compensation proceedings. Fairness and justice and all that, listen, we've been doing and trying and working towards that for decades. It's time for it to come to a halt. We have Stephen Brown. Is he Stephen Brown? Mr. Brown?
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for taking the time to let me testify on this bill. The ACLU of Rhode Island opposes one particular section of this legislation. It deals with a lot of workers' comp issues. Our concern is with the section the first section of the bill that appears on page 1, which would create a presumption of intoxication if a person is injured or dies on the job and is found to have alcohol, a prescribed drug, or an unlawfully prescribed drug in their system. And we think that setting that burden on the employee as opposed to the employer is unfair. It would be very difficult in many instances for the employee to disprove what happened. And so the then effect would be to let employers off the hook for serious injuries that may take place on the job, especially because most instances we're not going to be talking about white-collar jobs. The impact of this will fall largely on people of color who are working in lower paying jobs where injuries are more often to occur. So we think that the current system of requiring the employer to prove that the person was impaired on the job is the more appropriate way to deal with this issue. And for those reasons, we hope, and for the reasons that we expressed in the written testimony that we've submitted, we hope that the committee, if it passes this legislation, will remove Section 1 from the bill. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I would like the record to reflect Stephen Brown from the ACLU is against opposing this bill, and Michael D. Lynch from Beacon Mutual is in support of this bill. That concludes the hearing. That concludes the hearing on 5473.